a proper employer branding, as well as an inclusive culture within the organization. Employer branding is extremely important to provide confidence to candidates. Ernst & Young is the perfect example where the Women Fast Forward program has tremendously helped them to increase the gender diversity. Now, the diverse organizations are difficult to manage. So you need to make sure the managers understand the challenges to manage a diverse team, which means an inclusive working culture is also very important. If these two things have to happen, but I don't think there is a certain rule which has to happen first, but recruitment being the gateway, a critical process is very important. Now, if you talk about inclusive recruitment process, the way we have done is we use a lot of behavioral science, because I'm a big believer of behavioral science. So we use the techniques where you can tackle or avoid bias. Gender neutral language is extremely important to make sure you don't ripple a certain group of people. And the statistics say terms like rock star and so on is not probably a woman would want to see in the job description, which means that you are not less likely to attract the gender aspect when it comes to tech roles and so on. We are pioneers for content anonymization. We call blind resume. We can anonymize resumes and cover letters and responses to questionnaires. What it does is it helps hiring managers to sift through resume without having to worry about bias. If you have 10 resumes, you literally don't know who is John or who is Mary. So you end up making an unbiased decision because the brain develops a pattern to look into what it matters. Rooney Rule is other technique that we use extensively now. In different countries called positive action tool. I'm sure, I listened to one of the podcasts that you had where I think it was John was talking about implementation of Rooney Rule. And it is important to create the social mobility, especially from initial screening stage to interview stage. And it's widely being accepted in many organizations at this moment. There are many other techniques that one could bring to the foray, like diverse panel. Group thinking reduces bias. So this is another non-technical or non-technology-led initiative an organization can come up with to reduce bias. And then we need to always look into the data, so that because if you lose the track of data, you can't improvise. And this is where diversity analytics is extremely important. What we have done within Fair Hire is we've blended together all these behavioral aspects and created a sustainable and meritocratic process. Now, we talked about process, we talked about the landscape. What we also need to understand is the human behavior aspect when it comes to society. Societal change, you look into global warming, you look into COVID-19 as a problem, it goes through a certain model. I mean, that is how it has always been. I mean, it's famously called as Kubler-Ross model. Always starts the shock. If you map the issue to COVID-19, and then it comes to denial, and then it gets frustrated, and then go to depression mode. And the curve from the depression mode is when the change starts to happen. And then people start to try experiment different things, and then they realize, and we're going to do something about it. I'm going to take a decision out of the possibilities that I have in front and start implementing it. Tackling diversity, I think we need to consider this a societal problem. Organizations go through this phase before they accept and adapt. So what we are trying to do for big campaigns, the one which we are doing in Oregon and one we are planning to do in Arizona, as well as the one we do in Africa, is to understand in a certain region at what stage organizations are, and accordingly help them to move from one stage to other. So sometimes they are in the educational stage, and sometimes they're awareness stage. Sometimes they already started engaging, so it's the engagement stage. So what we have done with the Fair Hire framework is brought in all this expertise and knowledge together and brought in policy, science, and technology to create an ecosystem where talent can and flourish, and it, eventually it will create that economic viability that we're talking about. Now, the way we would like, we architected this is, we want to create awareness to candidates so that they can come to that region thinking that, hey, this is where I just not only going to get the opportunity, but I have a sustainable future. I can grow, I can, achieve my career ambitions. And for organization, so okay, with the policies and the marketing messages and so on, we able to attract candidates to get there. But they wouldn't come unless employers will start creating inclusive recruitment process. And this is where University of Bocconi in Milan is supporting in this framework to create scientific interventions so that organizations understand how they can adapt. Organizations' behaviors vary differently from one size to other. And they are the experts, and they have one of the best labs in the world when it comes to gender diversity, ethnic diversity issues. And then we come as a technology partner, where we bring in all these innovations that we're building since 2015 to help organizations achieve their goals and make it a bit more sustainable. So we want to take the problem out of people layer to the process layer so that it can be much more sustainable. I know Steve did mention to me in the beginning that we have only 15 minutes. So I try to squeeze in a lot of important topics slide by slide. But I'm more than happy to take any questions you may have. But there is a small micro website that you could have a look into to see what the framework is and how that will be rolled out. But I'm more than happy to take if you have any questions.
So Biju, number one, thank you so much. That was incredible. I do a lot of work with one of the companies I own, does a lot of work with behavioral and cognitive analytics. So I love this stuff. I think maybe we need to provide a even larger platform. And this group, the Community Collaborative, also hosts a web series. I think you've watched a couple of episodes, and I think it might be a great idea, just so you can maybe expand a little bit, to invite you onto our web series as a guest, so that maybe either pick up where you left off or expand on a little bit further, because one of the key initiatives of this organization, this group, as well as the business leadership within Phoenix Metro, is to try to create some sort of inclusion index. We want to be able to quantify diversity and inclusion so that our companies really know where they stand. Because right now, we know that DEI is this very convoluted moving target, right? Is DEI critical race theory? Is it racial equity? Is it, something else? And it's really not. It's none of those. It is its own being. So I think that we really need to have some way of helping companies better understand and quantify, and it certainly starts with the hiring. I do have a quick question. So this is great, and the challenge with all of the great programs out there that anonymize, if you will, the interviewing process. At some point, there's face-to-face. At some point, you're going to want to meet the human being you're hiring. Is there anything built into your system that helps those that are in the hiring positions learn to make more objective choices and decisions?
It's a great question, Robin. Conceptually, we divide the process into two. Until interview stage is when we use principle of anonymity. Interview is an integral part of the whole process, because that's when you understand the cultural fit and many other aspects which is important for the role. And we want to preserve that. I mean, the key aspect of change management is to stay as close to the as-is process. Because human beings, we are reluctant to change. So interview has to happen, otherwise hiring managers will not embrace the change. It's too big a change for them. What we do, once you break the anonymity seal, which is when we start using the principle of accountability. And so the technology can dictate patterns of decision making. So which means one's hypothesis will turn to evidence. So if there is a bias happening in the group panels, and these panels are very important, then organizations understand, right, then these panels actually distorted the data. you know what? They probably don't know that they have a bias. It could be, that's why it's unconscious. And then once HR or in part leaders, once they know what's the problem, they can solve. Training is one methodology. Incentivization, financial incentivization is one of the trending way of tackling problem. For if they identify a bias happens from interview stage onwards. McDonald's is doing that. Microsoft Seattle is doing that. I heard JP Morgan is trying to put in place. So to answer the question, we want to preserve interviews and we want to stay as close to the process. And so which means that we do have video interviewing technology within the platform, and because we want to make sure the process is much more efficient, but we don't want to jeopardize anything by taking away the sanctity of the interview process.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to reach out to you offline. Steve shared your contact information with me. So I'm going to reach out to you offline and we're going to do what we can to coordinate between you and our executive producers to get you onto our web series so we can get this message out to a broader audience as well, if that's okay with you.
I
Absolutely.
Great idea, Robin. And hopefully for some of you, this is just the beginning of the conversation with Bijou. We're very excited about it. And I just wanted to give him some exposure to the rest of you. So if you're grappling with ways to deal with this, either within your own organization or your members are dealing with it, feel free to just reach out directly to him and learn more about what he's doing. So Bijou, really appreciate you being here today. I love the idea of getting you on the podcast. And if anyone is interested, you can get a hold of me. And Bijou, can we share the slides with everyone?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll send those around so everyone gets a copy of them. And again, thank you for being here today.
And before you sign off, Bijou, if you will drop your contact information, whatever you're comfortable with, if you'll drop it in the chat so everybody can grab it before the episode's over, I appreciate it.
Is there the ability to put the PowerPoint in the chat too? Yeah, I guess you could send a URL to it if you have it located somewhere.
I shall send the URL to you.
Okay, that's fine. Good.
Okay. Thank you so much. So before we go on to Reina Montoya with Aliento, I wanted to say a quick hello to Holly and say, hey, Holly, I just read that August 9th, we're opening the US-Canada border. Is that correct? You're muted.
There we go. That is correct. I know, right? Long overdue. There are still wrinkles to be ironed out in that one. There, vaccinations and things of that nature to be dealt with, but they're cutting back on the quarantining. They're not going to make children 12 and under quarantine. So while I think for travelers, there are going to be some hoops to jump through, the fact that this is happening is a huge deal. So yeah. We're very excited in general and specifically for the state of Arizona, because that'll mean big things coming into the fall and winter this year for us.
Yeah, please make sure you leverage the collaborative in any way you need to, so that we are certainly promoting any messages you want. And then obviously creating value here in Phoenix as well. But we love this partnership that we have. And that was probably the best news I saw come across my phone today. So really
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
Yeah, glad to see it happening.
I'll bet you Glenn Williamson is doing flip-flops right now. He's
him well, Steve. he's when we got the news, he phoned me immediately and I'm driving to a meeting. We have to get this out. So he's very excited.
Fantastic. Okay, so the next guest is Reyna Montoya. She is the founder and executive director of Aliento, Arizona. Reyna, I'll hand you the mic. Do you have slides you want to present or just vocal?
No, I'll just be vocal and then I'll share a couple of resources at the end.
Wonderful, thank you.
Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Robin, for such a kind invitation and allowing me to share a little bit more about my story and the work that we do with Aliento. My name is Reina Montoya and I am the founder and CEO. Aliento is a nonprofit leadership organization where we transform trauma into hope and action with the immigrant community. We predominantly serve undocumented, DACA, the Dreamer population, and mixed immigration status families. Here in the state of Arizona, 1 in 9 children sitting in our K-12 system live in a mixed immigration status family. Many of you might not know what that means, so I thought that story sometimes really helped to kind of illustrate that. I actually grew up in a mixed immigration status family. I grew up undocumented in the state of Arizona. My parents ended up making a really courageous decision of migrating from Tijuana, where I was born, to Nogales, which is just 3 hours south of the border from us. First, because at that time, I didn't really know what we were migrating. I would later on find out the story, but my dad had unfortunately been a victim of a really severe crime and had been kidnapped. And the people behind the kidnapping at that time, due to the corruption, was the very own Mexican police. So at that time, my dad wanted to seek our safety. After a lot of trouble and being able to pay partial ransom, he was let go. And when he wanted to go forward to say like, hey, we want to make sure to make a declaration. We want to make sure that folks go after the people who inflicted so much pain in our family. That's when he got threatened by Mexican police. Mexico, it is a large country, so we thought that migrating to another state would probably help with ease some of that anxiety and stress. But the reality was that every time that my dad would see a police officer, his whole body would shake. So that's when we decided to make Mesa, Arizona our home. So my parents have been living in Mesa, Arizona since 2003 with myself. They still own the same little home. And my dad now, it's a very successful entrepreneur. So it's a really pleasure to be able to talk to you all. He leads a construction business and LLC. He started as an electrician, and now he like owns a couple properties and does anything from commercial to residential, and employs a lot of U.S. citizens in the East Valley predominantly, but most of his work goes from Gold Canyon all the way to sometimes to Prescott. So that's a little bit about my story. I like to share that a little bit to provide context about like who I am and what I do, the work that I do. As I said, Aliento is a nonprofit organization. We predominantly focus in 3 areas. We have our Cultiva, a program that it translates to cultivate. So how do we plant those seeds with our younger generations so they don't have to go through many of the struggles that I went through as a young person, from lacking in-state tuition to being able to have so many barriers in order to succeed. So we provide arts and healing workshops, group therapy that we do in the schools and then in community. We have our nurture program where we predominantly focus with the higher education pipeline. So our constituency predominantly is the 7 to 24 years old. That's the main students that we see. So then the nurture program is like a fellowship program where we provide a stipend to our young people that are high school and college age to really support their leadership development. Coming from like predominantly low income, 100% of our students are first generation students. They have a lot of barriers to invest in their own leadership. So for us, like, how do we really invest in their leadership and provide a stipend for them to go through the program to remove that barrier? And then last but not least, we have our Transform program, where we believe that there's so many good people out there that want to support the immigrant community, but might not know how. And that's where we come in. We provide culturally competency training for educators, counselors, nonprofit leaders, and business leaders to provide more culturally competent either programming or businesses to the immigrant community. And then we also do advocacy. And that's the reason how Robert and I got connected to Reyna Gutierrez, because this past month of June 28th, it was the 10-year anniversary to the very first time that the DREAM Act was ever heard in the US Senate. I don't know if you're familiar with the DREAM Act. Probably you've heard Dreamers going on a lot, especially after Friday. You've probably been hearing a lot of news around Dreamers. So what has happened is that it's been 20 years since the very first time that the DREAM Act was introduced in a bipartisan fashion by Senator Durbin and Senator Hatch at that time from Utah. since those 20 years, we have seen the DACA program being implemented by the Obama administration. Then that program got rescinded by President Trump in 2017. And then there was a whole legal litigation and battle going all the way to the Supreme Court. And then the litigation has been going on and on and on. And then just last Friday, we found the news that a judge coming out of Texas decided that the DACA program was unlawful. So the program got ended again for new applicants, but not for people who are renewing that. So we've been in this uncertainty going on for many, many years, and it takes a human cost here in the state of Arizona, just to kind of paint the picture, since I know that that's the state that I'm assuming all of us really care about, is that there's approximately 25,000 DACA recipients. The majority of them are actually the average age is about 29 to 30 years old. So a lot of them are already in the workforce. We're seeing that it's not only the students, but also young professionals that have different careers. And we're seeing how now employers constantly are trying to navigate the different changes that the DACA program has. So that's why I wanted to come in today to share a little bit more about my own personal journey, but also to share about maybe you are struggling without understanding the landscape and are thinking, maybe I do want to support and I don't know how. I wanted to really extend an invitation to you all to potentially consider learning more about our campaign that is called We Are All Arizona right now, as we are getting ready for 2022. I can't believe we're like way more than halfway done with the year, getting ready to think through what's going to happen. There's a huge policy priority for us to making sure that there's a permanent solution about the DREAM Act. Currently in Congress, there's been different conversations about doing it through a reconciliation package. Our senators have been very friendly towards Dreamers. They have made public statements in support of Dreamers, either via tweet or via their own websites. However, we're going to need their leadership, and we're going to need them to really step up if we want to make sure that we have a permanent solution. Recently, not too long ago, Gallup, in partnership with the Arizona Center for Arizona's Future, came up with, I don't know if you have seen the Arizona Way. I think many of you were probably invited to that, but then more than 80% of Arizona voters support a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers. So I wanted to just kind of bring this information to you all to make sure that we put it into your radar, because these a couple of months are going to be really critical for us. As soon as 22 is over, unfortunately, the majority of elected officials are going to go and transition into campaign mode for the next election cycle. So this is the best opportunity that we have had in years, I would say since 2013. And it's going to be really key that leaders like you, if you are in supportive, that we hear your voices, especially our senators, Kelly, know that this is a priority, because unfortunately I've seen it and I've lived it personally, that there's a difference between the support versus the actions. And that's something that we've seen with both parties, that this transcends political parties and both Democrats and Republicans, and not seeing a resolution. So I'm going to pause it there. I know I have about like 6 minutes or 5 minutes or so for any questions. And I also wanted to make sure that I drop some resources, as I was mentioning to you all. This is our toolkit that we have created, where it lays down a little bit about the background of the campaign. It also tells you tangible ways that you can get plugged in. But now, more importantly, if you personally have any relationships with Senator Kelly and Senator Sinema, and you support Dreamers, this is something that I would be happy to work with you to make sure that you relate that message. But yeah, I'll step back and see if you all have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you, Robin, for your leadership and for allowing me to share a little bit more about what's going on with the Dreamer legislations and potential solutions in our state.
We really appreciate you sharing your information with us. And every one of us in this organization is impacted. So I knew there would be value, and I knew they would want to hear. Let's open it up to questions if anybody has questions for Reyna.
Reyna, do you recommend we send a letter to our two senators? Is that, do you have like a draft letter you can share with us that we can, you know, customize and send to both of the senators? I have a relationship with both of them, so I'd be happy to help. This is an area that the Tech Council has long been focused on, and would love to support you.
Yes, in the link that I just dropped in the chat, if you go all the way to the bottom, I don't know if I can share my screen. I can potentially show
I see it.
Okay.
Very good. Excellent.
It has the contact information of all the staff leads, both here and in DC. I would recommend if you're emailing, for example, Senator Cinema, if you have her personal email or her office email, you can send that and then just CC Michelle and Ed.
Yeah, I have. Well, I
The
have
staff people are the ones that really do the work. So being able to CC them or address them, I think that that would be really important. And there's a template letter about how you can start, and you can definitely add more information about your company.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Of course.
If I am an employer and I want to hire a DACA employee, can I do that legally?
Yes, as of now, you can do that completely legally. If you are a Daca recipient, you have a social security number and a work authorization employment card. So for example, typically when you're hiring people for full time, you are going to be required to file an I-9 because of E-Verified in Arizona. So they should be able to have the proper documentation. You're just going to have to make sure that your HR department is aware of their expiration date, because it expires every 2 years. So as long as they have the renewal and they're able to provide the new one, you shouldn't be in any legal trouble. And I'm not an attorney, full disclosure. It's not legal advice, but it's a normal practice.
Remind us how many DACA recipients there are in Arizona?
25,000 that are currently active for the DACA program. And we have a potential of 65,000 that would have benefited from a DREAM Act.
Yeah, we did a little bit of research at one point. About 3,000 work in the technology manufacturing industry here in Arizona. So big impact.
Reyna, I have a question for you. So I have a couple people that actually weren't able to get their DACA application renewed. Is there any resources, any organizations out there that we can connect them to?
Yes, you can connect them to us. I'm going to drop the link as well, because we have a DACA toolkit. So if they are waiting for the renewal, we typically connect them with congressional offices. We work really closely with their case managers to making sure that we're expediting the process, and we can guide them and support them along the way. But I'll drop the link right now for you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I'm going to share a couple of things in the chat. So the first thing I'm sharing is just through conversations with Phoenix Economic Development. Here's just a list of things that are coming up in the coming years. Let's just make sure that all of our organizations are getting a big head start to see where we have opportunities, or our member bases might have opportunities. So we've got we're confirmed for the Super Bowl. So Phoenix Metro's confirmed for the Super Bowl in February 2023. There's no information yet on the national championship. Final Four will be here. Men's Final Four in 2024. Women's Final Four 2026. National Minority Supplier Diversity Council, which was supposed to be last year. We had them confirmed for last year, but it looks like they are now looking at a 2025 date to have their national conference at our convention center. That conference is about a week long, and they get something like 16 or 18,000. Ricardo, you know, they get like 16 or 18,000 people to come in during that. So let's just make sure that we are doing everything we can to work together to make sure that our organizations, as well as our members, are well positioned for these opportunities. I know that in years past, there were a lot of promises and commitments made to different organizations that never panned out. But what we want to do is kind of get past that and look to what we're dealing with today and the future. So I just wanted to add that in there. And then this is the last thing for me. I'm going to drop this one. This is just a couple of links. I was on a call with Dr. Crow from ASU on Thursday or Friday of last week, and he kind of just threw out a statistic and said, hey, we're finding that 99% of deaths since May from COVID have been individuals that were not vaccinated. And of course, my first question was, cite your source. Where's the data? These are the links that were provided. So it looks like that's accurate information. 99% since May. The deaths were unfortunately attributed to those that are unvaccinated. In Arizona, 91%. So regardless of politics, I just wanted to share data or access to data. This is just so many reasons why we just have to be so very careful. We're starting to see many more cases of vaccinated people contracting the new Delta variant. We are hearing that it is not as severe, or the impact of it is not as severe to those that have been vaccinated, but it remains true then that if you can catch it, you can transmit it. So, let's just make sure that we're doing all that we can to keep ourselves and those around us as safe as possible, and to try to share objective information whenever we can, because we really, I can guarantee everybody on this call, we don't want to go through another year of masks and restrictions and so many other things when it looked like we were just starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. So just wanted to share that for everybody. I'm happy to hand the floor to anyone else that has anything they want to share that is either important to them or relevant to the group.
Hi, Robin. This is Carmen, and I am working with ACLU of Arizona. I know they were scheduled to speak today, and we're still trying to figure out exactly what happened to the speaker for today. I do apologize, but I wanted to at least share a few words about the campaign that we're working on with them, and as a teaser, and then hopefully we can get Victoria Lopez, the Advocacy and Legal Director, to give some further information on the campaign at another meeting. So I do apologize for that. Can I say a few words?
Oh, yes, please do.
Okay. Well, we had a wonderful meeting already with Monica to discuss the campaign, and it's really about creating a more humane asylum process at the southern border. And given that there have been a lot of barriers to asylum over from the previous few years, namely, and one of the things that we're really working on trying to end right now is Title 42, which is the public health order that allows for the expulsion of migrants into Mexico, and this has been about 875,000 people that have been expelled, and among some of them are asylum seekers who are fleeing danger and persecution in their home countries. They're from everywhere. They're from Romania and Cuba and Haiti, as well as the Northern Triangle. And unfortunately, Black asylum seekers have been disproportionately affected by this policy, as well as many other minority groups. And so we're working with them on in a whole scale sense, just creating a more humane process where we can get some of the fabulous community organizations that have and faith groups that have already contributed so much to help those seeking asylum, and get them to be a bigger part of the process, and welcoming those people who are fleeing terrible situations in their country, as well as having them not wait for their asylum case in Mexico, where unfortunately about 3,000 crimes, murders, rapes, kidnappings have occurred of people who have been forced to wait in Mexico. So this is it's a bit of a downer, but we're really hopeful that we can get a lot of our border community organizations and community organizations working together to really to try to help these folks to pursue their legal due process rights, internationally legal right to asylum. And then hopefully, with this group, one of the things that they do have the opportunity to do is get work permits. And so once they are established and within the court system, as they're awaiting the determination of asylum. So we'd love to work with this group on discussing that, but really it's a humanitarian issue, and so Victoria has so much more great information, and we look forward to presenting that to you in further detail.
Great, thank you. We'll look forward to it, and I'll coordinate with Monica and just figure out how we can get them back on the calendar. I think we were also hoping for Michael Mazzocco to be on the call, and I don't think he was able to make it today either. So let's remember, does everybody have the link that if you want to schedule someone as a guest, everyone here has the same equal access to it? Does everyone have the link for that? If not, I'll grab it and put it on here, because that way you put them on there, you say who you are, who they are, what their email address is, and that way we don't ever overbook a given day, but then we know who's speaking. So talk amongst yourselves. I will find the link and put it on there.
Robin,
Yes.
Rob, there was one
this
thing
is
I want.
Jose Rodriguez, and sorry. I was just indicating that Michael Mazzocco is not here. He ended up having COVID, so he's sick right now. He's doing okay. He was vaccinated, but he's still not feeling great.
He's a good guy.
Robin, I just wanted to mention that we have our annual CEO retreat coming up on August 18th and 19th. It's a 2-day event that includes golf on the second day, and it's in Prescott, and all of you that run organizations would be welcome to attend. So it's essentially for the head of the organization, and it's a great event every year. We get about 100 CEOs, so it's pretty cool.
What's the date of it, Steve?
It's August 18th and 19th, and it's in Prescott this year. You can find information under events at the aztechcouncil.org.
Fantastic. Yeah, I heard golf, so I'll be there.
Yeah, all right.
All right, we're just coming up on time. Does anyone have anything else they want to add? All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you in another month. Let's keep doing what we've been doing. I just want to say thanks to everybody, because we communicate throughout the month. I get great articles from Steve. I get great connection opportunities through Alan. Carmen and I have been on several calls, probably just in the last week and a half, one with Congressman Stanton, Ricardo, dear friend. So we talk all the time anyway, but let's just keep this going. This is really going in a great direction. I'm so excited to be a part of it. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.